There are incidents in this industry that never make it into any report. No headlines, no follow-up, just a family that almost lost their pet and a logistics company that hoped nobody would find out. Today I am going to tell you about one of them. I am Julian, Chief Pet Travel Advisor at Rockstar Pets. This is the overheating incident. What happened, why it happened, and what it tells you about the difference between a trained pet attendant and someone doing this as a side job. A 9-week-old puppy was being transported by an individual operating outside of a professional pet logistics company. This person was not formally trained in animal care or in-flight animal monitoring. They had booked a commercial flight using standby benefits and were accompanying the puppy as what the industry informally calls a flight nanny, a term that carries no certification requirement, no insurance standard, and no regulatory oversight whatsoever. Mid-flight, the puppy began showing signs of heat stress, excessive panting, restlessness in the carrier, a shift in behavior that to an untrained eye might look like normal anxiety in a young animal on its first flight. To someone with proper training, it would have registered immediately as the beginning of a physiological stress response that required intervention. The person accompanying the puppy did not recognize what they were seeing. They had no formal training in animal distress signals. They had no protocol for in-flight health events. They had no direct line to anyone qualified to advise them in real time. They did what most untrained people do in that situation. They waited and hoped it would pass. It did not pass. The puppy's condition continued to deteriorate through the remainder of the flight. By the time they landed, the animal was in visible distress. They recovered. But the outcome was not guaranteed, and for a significant portion of that flight, a 9-week-old puppy was suffering in a way that was entirely preventable. I want to be precise about what caused this. It was not the airline. It was not the route. It was not bad luck. It was the direct result of an unqualified person being trusted with a living animal they did not have the training to care for in a high-stress environment. Let me tell you what a Rockstar Pets pet attendant would have done differently. Within the first signs of elevated panting, our pet attendant would have begun monitoring respiratory rate against the baseline established at pickup. Excessive panting in a 9-week-old puppy mid-flight is not a minor observation. It is a clinical signal that triggers an immediate response protocol. The attendant would have assessed cabin temperature and air circulation around the carrier. They would have repositioned if necessary. They would have applied the specific cooling and calming techniques they are trained to use in exactly this scenario, and they would have had a direct communication line to escalate if the situation required it. None of that happened on that flight, because none of that infrastructure existed. The person on that flight was not equipped for the moment they were in. This is the gap that most buyers never see until it is too late. When you are comparing pet logistics options and one is significantly cheaper than another, the question you need to ask is not what is included. The question is what is missing. In most cases, what is missing is training. What is missing is protocol. What is missing is the professional infrastructure that exists specifically for the moments when something goes wrong. The pet logistics gray market operates on the assumption that most transports go smoothly, and most do. The problem is that when they do not, the consequences fall entirely on the animal. And a 9-week-old puppy has no way to tell you that something is wrong until the signs are already visible. By the time you can see them, the window to respond easily has already narrowed. At Rockstar Pets, our pet attendants are trained specifically in animal stress recognition and in-flight health monitoring. Every transport includes a baseline assessment at pickup, continuous monitoring throughout the journey, and a clear escalation protocol if anything changes. That is not a premium add-on. That is the minimum standard we consider acceptable for every animal in our care. The puppy in this incident made it. We are grateful for that. But the outcome should never have depended on luck. It should have depended on training. And that is exactly the difference between what we do and what most of this industry offers. I am Julian. If you are booking a pet transport for any animal, ask the company you are considering what their in-flight health monitoring protocol looks like. A professional operation can answer that question without hesitation. If they cannot, you have your answer.